The information contained in this episode is for informational purposes only. No material is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.
We need a revolution. There's only one solution. I need somebody to show me the love. We need a revolution.
Welcome to Informed Life Radio on 1150 AM KKNW and streaming to CHD TV, Rumble, and other platforms. Thanks for taking the time to tune in today. I'm your guest host, Lisa Templeton, standing in for Bernadette Pager. This hour of free speech radio is made possible by Informed Choice Washington. We want to thank our dedicated supporters for keeping this program on the air. And if you find value in what we share and appreciate our weekly Washington-focused public health Substack, our work tracking legislation, engaging with lawmakers and policymakers, and sending alerts to our subscribers, we invite you to consider making a one-time or monthly donation. Even $5 or $10 a month from you will help us stay on the air and continue this work. We're a small nonprofit operating on a very tight budget, and your support is critical. You can donate at informedchoicewa.org by clicking donate. Another easy way to support us is to start your Amazon shopping from the link on our homepage at informedchoicewa.org. This gives us a small commission at no extra cost to you. We're not encouraging more shopping, but just asking you to use the link when you do. Thank you for supporting independent voices like ours. The views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of KKNW or CHD, and the information provided is not intended to be medical or legal advice. Now, here's the fun part. Today, we are talking about one of nature's many beautiful tools for healing and purification, natural clay, and how simple ancestral remedies can support the body in powerful ways when we know how to use them well. This is one of many healing tools we've been given, and my guest is Neal Bosshardt, who has spent more than 50 years researching and teaching families, practitioners, and even physicians how to use natural clay for everyday health and healing. And I've had the chance to visit the headquarters of Redmond's bentonite clay during the farm tours at the Weston A. Price Conference in Salt Lake City in October, where Neal also spoke. And it's especially meaningful for me to be able to connect the dots and have a conversation with Neal about where these materials came from and how they're used in real life. So welcome, Neal. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, Lisa, thank you. Thank you. You know, asking me to talk about natural clay is like asking an old person to talk about their grandkids. So
very good.
I'm excited to be here.
Oh, great. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Well, you've worked with clay for about 50 years, and you've even taught clinicians. How did this whole journey start for you?
It was amazing. Really amazing. It started back in the 1930s. My grandfather actually bought a farm here in Utah, and he bought it as a farm. But underneath this farm was a deposit of natural mineral salt laid down by an ancient sea when God created this earth. And eventually, we began to mine that salt and to sell it for both livestock and eventually people. Well, on the edge of the farm, there was an outcropping, really unique. It's a clay, also called bentonite, but it's a unique clay. Now, there's as many kinds of clays as there are breeds of dogs. So to say you've got a clay, it doesn't mean anything. But certain clays come under the category of bentonite or montmorillonite. And this clay, there on the edge of Grandpa's farm, the pioneers found that when it would get rained on, it would shed water like a duck's back. And because it would turn into a gel through which water couldn't pass. Well, one of the original pioneers found that if he took some of this mud from this clay and made a poultice, he could pack it on the wounds of cows and horses, and it would heal them so well that they called him Dr. Blix, and they called this Blix's mud.
What is Blix?
His name. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And tell our listeners what a poultice is.
Okay. His name was Joe Blix, and so they called him Dr. Blix because of what he could do with horses and cows with this mud made from this bentonite. And what he would do is he would just make a patty, like a hamburger patty of this mud, and he would put it on wounds and then allow it to dry. And as it would dry, it would suck out the infections and heal these horses and cows. And that's why they called him Dr. Blix. And interesting, my father was born here in Redmond in 1917. And as a little boy in the 1920s, he had an infection in his hand that developed a red streak all the way into the armpit. And my grandparents, when they saw this red line up their little boy's arm, they went out there to this deposit. Now, at that time, Grandpa didn't own it. And Joe Blix didn't. It was just community property. It was the foothills. Okay. But my grandparents got some of this clay, made a mud, packed my dad's hand in this mud, wrapped it with a towel to hold it in place, and he went to bed with a red line up his arm. But he got up the next morning with no red line, sucked it out overnight. It's like putting mud on bee stings. Everybody's heard of that. But this clay is just a really powerful mud. Well, Joe Blix died, and his work died with him. And I never even heard the story of Joe Blix until the 1970s, which by that time, Grandpa had bought the farm. He owned this deposit, and the health food people came to us with this book called Our Earth is Our Cure, in which this French homeopath says that there are certain kinds of clays that have medicinal properties. And they wanted to know if our clay, this clay on Grandpa's farm, would have medicinal properties. Well, we didn't know. Well, they wanted to try it. And long story short, we found that this clay does have medicinal properties. And we'll probably get into some of those stories as we talk. But that's how we got into it.
Okay. And where is your grandpa's farm?
It's 3 miles north of the town of Redmond. It's 150 miles south of Salt Lake City.
Okay, so it's in Utah because, we have a Redmond in Washington too.
That's true. So those who know Utah, we're located halfway between the Great Salt Lake and the Arizona border in just a little remote rural area.
Okay, great. Give us a quick family snapshot and tell us how clay shows up in your daily life and has been for all these years. Well,
and in one of your questions, you said, who's one of the skeptics that I converted to clay?
Yeah, that's what I'd like to know.
The biggest skeptic who was converted is me.
Okay.
There was nobody more skeptical than I was when the health food people, when this book by Dextrate, he says that the clay, right kind of clay, and again, there's some clays work, some clays don't, but he said the right kind of clay will bring the body into balance. It'll do one thing for you, but something else for me, something else for my neighbor. It responds to the organism. And now we're talking dirt. How does dirt respond to an organism? I was the skeptical one. But at that time, this was the mid-70s, in our family, there was a person who she had medical conditions that conventional medicine couldn't fix. It was actually constipation due to the iron in prenatal vitamins. This poor gal was having one bowel movement every week or 10 days. And that's not healthy or comfortable, either for her or the baby. They knew that. She tried through diet to get her bowels to work. They wouldn't. Medicine, she tried a medicine, it worked, but it made her cramp so hard with diarrhea that she was afraid she would lose the baby. And luckily she didn't, but when the diarrhea was gone, the constipation was back, and her husband said, "Are you going to refill the prescription?" She said, "I don't dare." he said, what are you going to do? She said, I don't know. And he knew about the clay. He said, you want to try that clay? And she said, I will if you will. She thought, if this is lethal, I don't want to die. I don't want to die alone.
Okay.
So if it's lethal, we'll die together. And she was desperate, and he was desperate enough to where he was willing to try it too. So they followed the directions of the book, the French homeopath, and they each drank clay as directed by the French homeopath, and we'll show that here today.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to.
And in 3 days, drinking a glass of clay water each day in 3 days, her bowels are normal. Daily, easy, gentle, normal bowel movements. It didn't change him a bit. His bowels were normal to begin with. They stayed normal. But a few weeks after that, our grandmother's neighbor, we learned, had diarrhea so bad it would be down both legs and in her shoes before she could even get out of the church or the post office to go home. And so we got her some of this clay because we thought, well, dextrose said it would help 1,000 things. We know it helps one, constipation. He says it'll help diarrhea, the other end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to try it? And the neighbor said yes. Well, in a week, that little lady's bowels were normal.
Mm-hmm. So it has opposite effects. It's adapted.
It brought the body into balance. So it was at that point when I became less as a skeptic. And then from that point on, then when our family would have conditions that medical methods, conventional medicine didn't work, then in desperation we'd try the clay.
Okay.
And it always worked.
Has your thinking changed a bit? Instead of using clay as a last resort, using it as a first line of defense?
It certainly has, yeah. Eventually it became our, first aid kit, and then our medicine cabinet, and yeah, now it's our first line. We have clay in the cupboard, in the refrigerator. It's what we turn to first, not last.
Yeah. We have another guest on sometimes, Dr. Michael Gaeta, and his motto is nature first, drugs last, which I love. Okay, so tell us, what is medicinal clay? And then later I do want to get into how you prepare, how you suggest preparing these things for ingestion, and you explained a little bit about the poultice. But what is medicinal clay?
Okay, well, we probably ought to back up and say there is in the conventional medicine, there is no such thing as medicinal clay. Clay is not considered worth anything in the eyes of the AMA or the FDA except as a facial. That's the only thing it can be used for. So anything else is, what do they call it, off the spectrum or off the scale?
Off label.
Yeah. So
it's not FDA approved.
Right, for anything but a facial. Now, in our experience, clay does have some medicinal benefits. And that can be both internally and externally. Internally, the clay, because of its it's very alkaline, has a high alkalinity level. The clay also has a negative electronic charge. And most free radicals, heavy metals, toxins, and poisons have a positive charge. Well, because opposites attract, the clay is able to pull out toxins, poisons, free radicals, heavy metals, but it doesn't pull out the beneficial vitamins, nutrients, and minerals and those kinds of things. So in my mind, when I talk about a medical clay, yeah, it's a bentonite type clay that has this negative electronic charge that can pull out these toxins and heavy metals.
Is the clay especially porous so that each little bit has a very large surface area, or am I getting mixed up with charcoal?
No, you're what you've described for bentonite is absolutely true. They actually say that 1 teaspoon, just one, and that's not a teaspoon, but 1 teaspoon of of bentonite clay actually has the surface area of more than a football field.
Oh my goodness.
And so when you mix the clay with water, yes, it expands. It expands exponentially, creating, lots of surface area. And then that's why when you use the clay, take it internally, the clay can do two things. It can both absorb toxins and poisons, and it can also adsorb. And there's some scientific information, more details than we've got time to discuss that. But yeah, you want a clay that can both absorb and adsorb.
Okay, remind me of what adsorb is. Now my chemistry days are coming back.
Mine aren't yet. So
that's why I was counting on you.
no, and there is a book. There's a lot of books on clay. I have a little book on clay, but mine doesn't go into the science a lot. Mine is just we eat clay and wear it too, and mine is just a user's guide on how to use the clay. If somebody wants technical information on the clay, there's a book entitled, it was called The Clay Cure. Now it's called The Healing Clay, and the author is Ram Kaninsky. And that goes more into a lot of the science. So if somebody wants science, his book is better than mine.
Okay, The Healing Clay.
I've got
Okay.
it. Just
And then we're going to come back to your book, Neal,
okay.
which I did purchase at the very, very reasonable price of $5.99.
Did we lose audio?
We're back.
Okay. So
Okay.
one thing that is just really nice about the clay is you don't have to know how clay works for it to work.
Yeah.
And in fact, Raymond Dextrate, this original author, he said in his book, he says in here that mankind is not smart enough to know all the ways and reasons why natural clay works. He said, if you've got to have the science before you use it, you'll never benefit.
Yeah.
But the science is fine, and we certainly don't hesitate testing and getting all the science we can. And like you say, there are some reasons logically why the clay works. The alkalinity, the electronic charge, the broad mineral spectrum, those are all reasons why the clay works.
Okay. And what I can't remember if you used this word before, but I know I've seen it in your book and heard it in your lectures. By the way, people can go to YouTube and find a nice presentation from you on how to prepare these, but we're going to hopefully have time to touch on that a little bit today. But you talked about bentonite versus montmorillonite. Did I say that correctly?
You did. So basically, they're considered the same. They are minerals that were geological minerals that were deposited that have certain properties. When they found this substance with these properties in Fort Benton, Montana, it was called bentonite. When they found it in Montmoril, France, it was called montmorillonite. But generally, they're used interchangeably. Now, there's different kinds of bentonites. There's different kinds of montmorillonites. That's why geologists find it so hard to identify clays or bentonites, because there's so many minor differences, and maybe those differences are significant because once a geological mineral has been deposited, over eons of time, it can get contaminated with other substances. And so, to find a pure bentonite or a pure montmorillonite is not as easy as we'd like it to be.
Okay. And then the French montmorillonite, was that discovered or recognized a lot sooner than the bentonite?
Yes.
Do you know what year roughly?
Well, this book, Raymond Dextrate, he was using clay in the early 1900s. He wrote his book in 1950.
Okay.
And then it was translated into English in 1974 and brought to us in 1975. And you can see the book there. The problem is this book is out of print.
Okay.
I've seen copies of it listed for $200 to $300,
Oh,
which, in my opinion, it's not worth it. It's a good book. It's a great book, and some people may find that it is worth that money. But when we were introduced to the book, it was less than $20, and so that's what we were used to paying for it. So he was using the clay in the early 1900s, but clays were used by Native Americans when America was discovered. Clay was used in the old world. All of the doctors of antiquity, Hippocrates, Gandhi, Aristotle, Socrates, they all used clay. There's documentation that clay's been used since the beginning of time. What's interesting is during the First World War, soldiers on both sides of the conflict were issued clay as part of their rations. And those units that had clay in their rations didn't have those devastating experiences with dysentery that ravaged other troops.
so those were intended as edible,
Yes, yeah,
as opposed to like a first aid kit.
yes, yeah. Edible clay was issued to soldiers or as a prevention of dysentery, and it was great. But the problem is, as conventional medicine, became stronger and stronger, then anything natural just was pushed into the background.
That's right. It's not profitable.
No.
Okay, before you show us how to prepare the clay water, which is how people take it internally, tell us some of the symptoms that the internal form can address.
According to the Dextrate's book, when we read it first, we didn't believe any of it, because he said that the list he makes is diarrhea, constipation, heartburn, acid indigestion, ulcers, diverticulitis, colitis, hiatal hernias, acid reflux, H. pylori, rotavirus, food poisoning, celiac disease, Crohn's disease, irritable bowel, and I may have missed a few. Those were the things that he said that the clay could help. And over the last 50 years, we've verified just about every one of those. Let's see. Did I mention acid indigestion, allergies, celiacs, diabetes, diverticulitis, food poisoning, overeating late at night for older people who sometimes make the mistake of eating a heavy meal late at night? The clay.
Will it help us not overeat? Just kidding.
It work as well that way.
It's more like when you're paying for overeating.
Yes, but ulcers and stomach aches. Children who have a stomach ache and you don't know why. You don't have to know why. That's another beautiful thing with the clay. You don't have to have a diagnosis before using it.
I hear your dog.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to tell us how people go about preparing that water to drink?
You bet. So the way, and there's an easy way and a hard way.
Okay.
The hard way is what we did for 30 years before we learned the easy way. What it is, it's just, and I've got this written, 1 teaspoon of the dry clay in a glass of water.
Okay, and it's kind of it's like a sand color. It's not, usually when I think of clay, I think of like that red.
Yes. Now, and again, there's different kinds of clays, and there's some that, different color. But the clay I'm familiar with is a fine white powder, looks like baby powder.
Okay.
And so it's a teaspoon of that in a glass of water. I like to use 8 to 10 ounces. You can use as little as 5 or 6. You could use 12 or 14, but I like to use 8 or 10 ounces. The hard way is to put the clay in the water and stir it immediately. And that's the hard way, because mixing clay and water is like mixing flour and water. It clumps, it lumps, it sticks to the spoon, it sticks to the glass, but it'll work. And that's what we did for 30 years. And we just whip it as much as we could. You don't want to use a metal spoon, because a metal will damage the electronic charge the clay has.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
and that's if you use a spoon at all.
Yes. So if you use a spoon, use a plastic spoon, glass or plastic, and a plastic spoon.
Okay.
And so you just stir it up, and then you just choke it down, lumps and all.
Okay.
It works. It's just not pleasant. Now you don't even have to drink it right then. After you've stirred the clay and water, you can let it set aside for a few hours, and the sediment will drop to the bottom. The minerals will dissolve into the water, and the electronic charge is imparted to the water. So after a few hours, you can drink just the clear water off the top and throw the sediment away.
Okay. And that was, you didn't have to stir it. You just sprinkled it on top of the water and let it dissipate.
Well, that's the easy way. The easy way.
Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead.
Yeah. So the easy way is to have your glass of water, dump the teaspoon of clay on the water, and walk away. Don't stir it. Don't get the spoon wet. Just dump the clay on the water and leave the room.
Or should you not use the metal spoon on that method either?
Nope.
Oh,
metal.
darn. That's what I've been doing. So I should be using plastic spoon.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So now maybe that little momentary contact with the metal, I don't know how much it damaged the clay. So, you're still alive. So apparently it's not.
Okay.
So, but the best is metal. But you just sprinkle the clay on the water, walk away, leave the room, come back a few hours later. The clay will be sitting on the bottom. It will have hydrated by itself. And at that point, then you can shake the bottle, or shake it or stir it, and it will stir as smooth as a glass of milk.
Yes.
with no lumps whatsoever.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind drinking the murky liquid, you can drink it right then and get and you can drink it right then, and you won't even detect the sediment going through your teeth. It'll drink as smooth as a glass of milk. Now, if you don't like drinking the murky water, and especially if you've got little kids who, don't want to drink murky water, if you've got some finicky, son or, husband, then after you've stirred it that one time, let it sink, let it settle again, come back a few hours later, and you can drink the clear water off the top and throw the sediment away.
Right.
And get the same benefit generally as the whole murky mess. Then,
how do you dispose of your sediment?
that
Do you
sediment,
put it down the drain?
yes, that little bit of sediment we have poured down our drain for 50 years.
Okay.
And for the first 20 or 30 years, we were on a septic tank. Never caused any problem whatsoever. Now,
Okay.
you could pour it out on your compost. You could put it on some flowers. There might still be some benefit, in those minerals, but you can't just add more water to that sediment and expect to get the same benefit.
Okay.
Because the minerals that were dissolved into the first batch of water, the electronic charge that was imparted to the first batch of water won't be there to charge the second batch.
I'm wondering about using this for my pets. Do you do that?
We don't, but it certainly could be a good thing to do. Again, there's nothing harmful. There's nothing harmful in that sediment. So you just can't expect the same benefit, But yeah, you can put it on your flowers. You could give it to your pets. Again, there's nothing harmful.
I was just thinking of the water. It's the good water, like what I would drink, and then just put the sediment aside.
Yes.
Or I love your idea of putting it in the compost pile.
Sure.
What's the worst result you've seen with people using the orally ingested clay?
The worst result?
Uh-huh.
there's never been a bad result. The worst thing that we have ever seen happen with the clay is nothing.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing. Nothing. Now, if somebody overdoses, you can overdose on the clay. I mean, you still need some common sense. What you can overdose on the clay. If you take too much clay, it can cause constipation, which is ironic because people who are constipated, they take the clay to get their bowels to move.
Right.
But if you take too much clay, it can cause constipation.
Okay.
So I guess that, that's the worst thing. But again, that only happens if somebody, takes too much, more than what their body wants.
Okay. I know you told us a couple of great stories about the internal taking of the clay. Do you have maybe one more to share with us? And then we'll go on to external uses.
Okay. Oh my goodness. You mentioned that, what's my favorite story? Boy, that's like saying, which of my 28 grandkids is my favorite.
Yeah.
But there have been life-changing. I mean, literally, I have had people hug me and thank me for the clay. And when they do that, I tell them, don't thank me. This is not my product. It's not my creation. Our Heavenly Father, the Lord, created this and gave it to us as a gift. We were just blessed to learn about it. It's His gift. It's not mine. But literally, recently, just last year, we learned of a young man, 20-year-old man who is serving a humanitarian mission for his church in Bolivia. Due to diarrhea, he had 4 months of diarrhea, terrible diarrhea, followed by 2 months of terrible constipation, because what they did to stop the diarrhea just made him plugged. They sent him home for surgery to have surgery on his sphincter muscle because of hemorrhoids and anal fissures. And his family heard of the clay. They couldn't get him into the surgeon for 6 weeks. And I told his mom when she said that, I said, that 6-week delay is the best news your family ever got. And they had him drink the clay twice a day, which is just, 8 ounces of the clay, 8 or 10 ounces of clay with a teaspoon of clay in it. Drank it twice a day and then applied the gel topically every time he would go to the bathroom. And within a month, he was going to the bathroom pain-free. All the external fissures had healed. And 2.5 months after coming home for surgery, he was given a clean bill of health and reassigned as a missionary with no surgery whatsoever.
Gosh, what a relief of his pain and avoidance of all other sorts of risks and complications.
Yes. Disrupted life. So, and an easy way, another thing, you can do the clay, a teaspoon at a time in a bottle of water or a glass of water. I like to use these glass kombucha bottles instead of just an open glass, because I can dump the clay on there. I put it in my cupboard and it'll sit there. And when I need it, it's there. Some people would rather drink cold water. So if cold is your preference, put it in the fridge. Okay. And if you don't want to mix it up every day, mix up in a quart. That's a rounded tablespoon. And again, dump the clay on the water, sit it in the fridge, and a few hours later, it's ready to go. You shake it once, and you can either, you've got 4 8-ounce servings in that bottle.
Do you have to use it within a certain time period, or is it pretty stable to just?
There is no shelf life. Okay. Now in the fridge, you do need to keep a tight lid on it, because the clay absorbs.
Oh yeah.
And so without a tight lid, that clay is going to absorb the odors of the refrigerator, and that will taste like last night's fish. It'll taste like yesterday's sausage, or anything else that you've had in that fridge.
Okay. That reminds me, I wonder if you could use it instead of the Arm & Hammer baking soda, if you had an open container of it in your fridge for that purpose of absorbing odor.
Very likely.
Okay.
Very likely.
Do you drink some every day, or do you just take it when you feel like you need something, help with something?
For me now, there have been times in my life most of my life, for the first 30 years, it was just on an as needed basis, probably less than 3 or 4 times a year. And then I would hear these people who would rave about how much good it was doing if they were drinking it every day. And so then I would drink it every day for, a week or two, and then I'd get out of the habit. But so now I drink it once or twice a week just to maintain.
Okay. Very good. Okay, let's talk about, well, I should just share it personally that, after I've heard Neal's lectures and talks, that I did get the book. We'll cover this a little bit later. I got the ebook. It was only $5.99, printed it off. It's called We Eat Clay and Wear It Too. And so Neal's going to tell us a little bit now about wearing the clay, the external uses.
Yes. Now, do you have the slides I sent you, and can you post those up?
I don't recall getting slides, but I can bring up your website, but I don't think I want to show the photos. But if you guys want to see some really remarkable, incredible photos of people who have healed some quite remarkable wounds and things, go to weeatclay.com, and I'll bring up the website while Neal starts to tell us about how to mix and apply it externally. He told us a little bit at the beginning.
I did. So to use the clay externally, you want a gel about like mayonnaise or mustard. You want it to be thick enough to where when you put it on a wound, you don't want it to drip on the floor or the carpet. But you want it to be thin enough to where it spreads easily. The last thing you want is a child in pain, and here mom or grandma is shoving on his owie, trying to spread this clay that is too thick. So you want mayonnaise or mustard. And so I don't know if you can see how that comes up out of that bottle. Yeah, I think you can see that.
Let's see. Oh yeah, it's gooey, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And you've got it in a squeezed plastic bottle.
Yes, yeah, this is a squeezed plastic bottle, and this is what we call our travel tube.
Just thanks, Nathan reminded us, remember our audio audience to describe, please, what you were just demonstrating. I forgot to.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much, Nathan. So again, you want the clay to be like mayonnaise or mustard, thick enough to where it doesn't drip, thin enough to where it spreads easily. And so we keep the clay in a plastic tube like a ketchup squeeze bottle, so we can travel with it. And this plastic squeeze bottle of the gel will roll around under the seat of my pickup truck, in the trunk of my car, 365 days a year. Through the freezing of winter, through the heat of summer, that plastic bottle is rolling around in my vehicle. But if we're traveling and if somebody gets bit, burnt, bruised, or injured, or sick, it's under the seat of the truck, or it's under the seat of the car. Now, in my house, we keep a glass mason jar. It's a wide mouth quart mason jar, glass bottle, because again, you can't use metal, and you can't use a metal lid either. So it's a glass mason jar, wide mouth glass mason jar bottle with a plastic lid. And that bottle, we've had a bottle like that in our kitchen cupboard since 1975. About like mayonnaise or mustard. If one of our grandkids, one of our children years ago, now one of our grandkids, if they take a nosedive in the driveway, come up all skinned and bloody, we just run into the house, grab that quart mason jar out of the cupboard, and we just scoop the clay out of that jar and apply it to the burn, to the bruise, to the bite. We apply it, wherever it needs to be. And then
if it's a wound, do you clean it first, like run water over it or anything?
Yes, yeah. We still want to use common sense. And so if it's a burn, we run water on it to cool it. If it's road rash or some kind of a wound, scrape, yes, we clean it as best we can with warm soap and water. But then we just put the clay on there, and the clay's not a cream or a lotion, so it's not like you put it on like a salve. When you put the clay on a wound, you want to shoot for a 1/2 inch thick layer, like just a good generous hamburger patty thickness, 1/2 inch, even a little more than a half inch. And you put that on the wound, and you cover the wound plus at least an inch on all sides. So if you've got like a 2-inch burn, then you would put a 4-inch patty of clay, because you want the clay to extend an inch on all sides of the injury. And then you cover it, not to make the clay work. The clay will work uncovered, but you cover it because if you don't cover clay, you're going to find that clay on the couch, on the walls, on the door frame, on your partner, on your children. You'll find it everywhere. So you cover it. Now, if it's a burn, you cover that clay with plastic or with a wet towel, because a burn, you don't want it to dry at all. So the clay goes on wet, and with a burn, you keep it wet by plastic, covered with plastic or a wet towel.
And what's the reason you don't want it to dry out for burns specifically?
Because one of the reasons a burn hurts is because the moisture has been sucked out of the tissue. And so by putting that wet clay on there, it reduces the pain because it reinstates moisture back into those tissues, those cells that have lost their moisture because of the burn. Okay. And so you want to rehydrate those cells. And a doctor told me, and it's been verified many times, there's 2 keys to healing a wound. One is to prevent infection, and the other is to keep it moist. And a clay patty keeps a wound moist because of all the moisture that's in that clay. When you mix this clay to use, and we ought to talk of this, when you mix the clay to use, the recipe is 3 parts water to 1 part clay.
And that's how you make that gel.
So this quart bottle I make by putting in 2 cups of water, then 1 cup of clay, and then 1 more cup of water. And again, there's a hard way and an easy way.
To avoid the
yes, the easy way, put some of that water in the bottom, put the clay on top of that water, and then put the rest of the water on top. So you've got a sandwich of water, clay, water, put on the lid, and then just shake it up. And then set it aside. When you first mix that, it'll be as runny as a cheap ketchup. But after a couple or 3 hours, the clay will continue to swell, and it will be about like mayonnaise or mustard. And once you've made it, it never goes bad. I keep this in the kitchen cupboard. Some people keep theirs in the fridge. Kitchen cupboard is just fine. We've never, ever had it go bad. When my jar, again, when somebody gets injured, we run into the house, we scoop it out and apply it. When this jar gets less than half full, I never let this jar run empty. When it's less than half full, I add more clay and water. Like that, 3 parts water, 1 part clay. Put on the lid and shake it back up to where this jar never goes dry. The last time I washed my jar, I think, was 5 years ago.
Oh wow, okay. I wouldn't have thought to just keep adding. I would have started a new one. So this is easier.
Much easier.
More efficient, less
again,
waste.
Because you never want it to be empty.
Yeah, because you never know when you're going to need that.
Exactly. Again, this is the glass bottle is for a kitchen cupboard. The plastic tube is for the car, because I don't want a glass bottle rolling around in my car or truck.
Yeah.
So glass bottle, plastic lid in the kitchen, plastic tube in the vehicle.
I have those in my house and car now, thanks to you. And so short of, besides putting plastic over the poultice on the burns, what do you do on other sorts of injuries to keep it from getting all over your house, like you said?
For anything else, any other kind of wound, again, you put the clay on there, 1/2 inch thick, and then cover it with some kind of fabric. You can use gauze, a handkerchief, a pillowcase, anything, just some kind of fabric, so that it, over the next few hours, it can dry. Because as the clay dries from that mayonnaise consistency down to like Play-Doh consistency, that's when it really sucks. and stimulates the circulation, brings more blood to that site, and again, gets rid of infection. And so when it goes on, it's like mayonnaise. And then after a few hours, depending on how many layers of fabric you put on, we usually like to put on maybe 1 or 2 layers of fabric. And after 8 to 10, 12 hours, the clay will have dried to the stage of clay dough.
Okay.
And at that stage, then it will just lift off from the wound. You can dump that patty of clay in the garbage can. You can rewash and reuse the fabric if you want to. You never use the clay because that clay is going to be contaminated with whatever it was able to suck out through the wound or through the skin.
Okay, so that we don't want to put in compost or on our plants.
No,
like we would have the sediment from the water.
Exactly right. The sediment from the water is safe because it hasn't been in contact with anything harmful. But after the clay has been on a wound and has been on there sucking, then it's going to be contaminated with the byproducts of the healing process or whatever it could suck out of that wound. So you throw that patty of clay, and again, don't put that down your sink.
Okay.
You know,
Why is that one?
well, because volumes of clay, if you shoved enough clay down your sink, I
Okay.
mean, mud, you could plug your drain with a large volume of clay.
Right. Okay.
The little bit of water, you know, from drinking, that's a teaspoon. It's not going to do any damage. But if you were to force mud down your sink, you could do some damage.
Okay. And then, so you should just change it when it gets to be the consistency of Play-Doh.
Yes. So change it. We say change it probably, you know, twice a day. Monitor it. Change it when it's about like Play-Doh or mustard. About like Play-Doh. If you leave it on too long, it'll dry to the skin, and then it won't want to lift off. And so you'll have to get it wet, or it's going to pull off the new skin that the body is healing. And so we put it on and then monitor it with 2 things. When you put clay on a wound, first thing you can expect is the pain to drop like a rock. People who use the clay call the clay an external painkiller. One lady said it's better than oxycodone. Serious. And so, expect the pain to go down. Now, if and when the pain starts to come back up, then it's time to change the clay. Or when you change the clay, if there's watch for a foul odor. If it's stinky, then change it more often.
Okay.
If the clay is stinky when you change it, the clay didn't cause the stink. The clay sucked out the infection, and that's what stinks. And so if you don't change it often enough, it'll be stinky. It's just like the dishcloth on your kitchen counter. If you don't change the dishcloth often enough, it can get really rank.
Okay.
So
Hey, so sorry, Neal. We're coming up. We're almost running out of time, so I want to make sure you tell the story about. I'll let you choose between the little girl's burnt hand and your wife's sewing accident.
Let's do the little girl's burnt hand because that's more likely. So our secretary's little 4-year-old girl one night put her hand on a stove right after it had been turned off. Her mother was there, grabbed her hand, pulled it back, not in time. Every ring of the hot plate left a blistered line across the fingers and the palm, but on the heel of the hand where the little girl had put the most weight on the stove, as she tried to pull herself up on a stool, the flesh came off from her hand and was stuck on her smooth top range. Yeah. Luckily, she had the clay and knew how to use it. They ran water on the hand for a few minutes to get the heat out. Then they packed that hand in clay. And then she sat down in a rocking chair with this little 4-year-old girl who was just screaming her lungs out. That little girl was asleep in her mother's arms within 15 minutes. She got up, covered the hand with a plastic bag so it couldn't get wiped off, laid her in her bed. That little girl slept through the night. In spite of the fact that she's missing part of her hand. The next day, the little girl comes to her mom asking if she can take the bag off her hand. Mom said, no, you have to leave that on there today. After breakfast, she saw her little daughter riding her bike out on the driveway with both hands on the handlebars. That night, 24 hours after the accident, the mom, she said, I couldn't stand it. I had to see that hand. Took her in the bathroom, took the bag off, washed the clay off, and never did another thing to it because it looked so good. And 2 days later, I saw that hand, and I'd heard the story. I said, let me see this hand. She stuck her hand out. No lines, no blisters, no palm, nothing across the fingers and the palm. But on the heel of the hand where the little girl had left the skin had come off, there was a line of pink skin. No scab, no scar, just pink skin.
That's great. Wouldn't every parent love to be able to relieve their child's acute pain like that?
Yes. Lisa, I tell people, don't have kids or grandkids until you got the clay and you know how to use it. Now,
Okay.
I know, yeah, it may be too late for some. Hey, just this is what we use for soaking our feet.
Okay.
When we want to pull toxins from our body and we don't have time to do a full body clay bath,
Okay.
or we don't want to get in a full body clay bath, we use this foot basin and we soak our feet.
You've just got a plastic square, kind of like a kitchen sink insert there.
Yep, kitchen sink insert with water as hot as you can stand and 2 tablespoons of clay.
Okay.
And you can soak your feet, you can detoxify. A lady soaked her feet and pulled enough heavy metals and toxins from her body that then she used the water, after she soaked her feet, she used the water to water her house plants, and she killed every plant in her house from the water after soaking her feet.
Okay.
A
Because they
guy
pulled out
in
toxin.
Hawaii killed a section of his lawn with
dear.
the water from soaking it.
That would be this is a fun science experiment for the kids. Okay. I'm so sorry to rush at the end, but I want to make sure we get a couple more things out for our listeners. So you mentioned earlier you don't sell clay, but where is a reputable source for home use?
Where I get my clay is from a company called Redmond Life in Heber City, Utah. I don't work for them, but that's where I get my clay. And also, if you order from Redmond Life, and if you use a promotion code clean water, all one word, they give you a 15% discount on your purchase, and they make a donation to this organization called Who Lives that helps people in third world countries get clean, safe water.
Okay. Do you have the website for that?
I do. Redmond.life.
Okay. Redmond.life. And then again, I want to let people know about your website, weeatclay.com. Again, you can get this book for $5.99. It's an ebook. I printed it off. And I also just want to point out there's a poem in here that your son wrote that talks about how you took away his badge of glory because you treated his softball or baseball injury with clay. So when he went back to school the next day, he didn't have anything to brag about.
In full disclosure, it was a daughter who wrote the poem.
Okay.
And following a softball tournament. And there's more truth to that story than I should admit. There were times when I would look forward to our kids coming home with injuries so that I could pack them in clay.
What a dad. Well, I'd like to thank you. I'm sorry for the abrupt ending, but also, yes, thanks, Neal, for being on weeatclay.com for our listeners. And I'd like to thank our skilled producer at the station, Nathan Miller. And thank you, everybody, for tuning into Informed Life Radio on 1150 AM, KKNW, and CHD TV. This is your guest host, Lisa Templeton, signing off for the week. Bernadette will be back soon, and here's to embracing your informed life. Thank you, everybody.
Informed Choice Washington is a nonprofit organization that advocates for healthy immunity, medical freedom, and fully informed medical consent. The right to make medical choices without coercion is fundamental to our civil liberties and a basic principle in all human rights declarations. To learn more, tune in each Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. to an Informed Life Radio and visit the website informedchoicewa.org. It's time to take a stand for medical freedom. Go to informedchoicewa.org today.
Did you know that solutions containing iodine can inactivate viruses in the nose and throat in 15 seconds? And hydrogen peroxide can do it in under 30 seconds. Decades of studies, including many conducted during COVID, have shown that properly prepared and used nasal spray and gargling solutions can reduce your risk of infection, reduce viral load, reduce symptoms, and reduce transmission of viruses. To learn more, go to healthyimmunitynow.org and check out the EFU Challenge. Why spread fear and infection when nature provides solutions? Go to healthyimmunitynow.org today.
The information contained in this episode is for informational purposes only. No material is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.